Hi everybody, welcome to the Modular Nest channel and its very first video ever. In this video I will walk you through my last project, which was to build a display base for my last kit. I know it's a very unusual way to start, straight from the end, but I decided to begin this channel just after I completed my last kit and I really wanted a base for it and also to start recording ASAP. So you got how it comes to this, right? So keep watching and let's go. In the beginning of this year, I finished my clear prop Ki-51 Sonia in the 7/2 scale. The kit is very nice and I really liked the overall result, but I felt that something was missing to call this project finish, and I decided to build a Japanese thematic display base for it. So I started by cutting a 15 by 15 cm styrofoam square and also a piece of Depron in the same dimensions. The overall idea here is to simulate concrete slabs where the plane would be standing, and a small portion of terrain with vegetation and also a cherry tree, as this is a thematic base. So I draw a template of this in a piece of vegetal paper and transfer it to the Depron using a pencil and a rule. I also draw some cracks on the concrete directly over the Depron piece. To add texture to the concrete slabs, I used aluminum foil roughly turned into, let's say, a ball. And then I just roll it over the Depron surface. Depron is a very easy material to add texture, but you need to be careful to not apply too much pressure, because you can't do what was done. Sorry for the illumination, I know it's a little hard to see, but I'm still learning how to properly set all the lights around the workbench. It's a little hard to see, but the texture got very nice. On the area where the terrain and greenery are going to be, I just press my metal rule to create a slight depression. After that, I just glue the styrofoam and the Depron using PVA glue and let it dry. I cut some balsa wood stripes to cover the sides. I glued them in place with the PVA glue, and after dried I cut the excess and slightly sanded the edges. I applied PVA glue where the greenery is going to be. The texture will be made with dirt that I collected some time ago. As the base, I want only the finest granulometry, so I covered the top of the container with stocking. And then sprinkle it over the area with the glue and also over the concrete joints. I also add some coarse grains to increase texture. And with a soft brush, I clean the fine soil on the concrete area to fill the gaps between the slabs. I fixed everything in place with alcohol and PVA glue diluted with water and a drop of dish soap. The surface got pretty soaked, so I used a piece of toilet paper to remove the excess. Now I applied PVA glue over the areas where I want to add some grass. And I also sprinkled a little more coarser soil and then applied 2 mm static grass from Woodland Scenics with my homemade static grass applicator. Then I just flipped the base to remove the excess after the glue was dry. To make it more visual interesting, I also added some high grass stuffs made of 6 mm static grass from Noch and also some coarse turf from Woodland Scenics. While it dries, I primed the concrete area with regular black acrylic paint. I wasn't very satisfied with the greenery variation, so I decided to add some more homemade plants. With a piece of vegetal paper, I cut some long-shaped leaves. I'm not a botanic expert, so I'm not sure if a plant like that really exists. But anyway, after cutting these leaves that most resemble fingernails, I glued them together with PVA glue on its base with slightly different angles. After they are dried, I use the tweezer to bend the leaves and give a more realistic look. Vegetal paper or baking paper is easy to work with and holds the shape when bent, and the final result is pretty convincing. When it's all done, it's just a matter to pick some places on the base and glue them. Back to the concrete. I applied Vallejo off-white, slightly diluted and with low pressure on the airbrush to add a sprinkle texture. After that I applied a very diluted Vallejo black to add some pre-shading to cast some fake shadows around the base. Now for some colors. I like to use mixes of Vallejo Deck 10, khaki, off-white and German camouflage beige. I like these colors for stone and concrete effects. To add color variation on each concrete slab, I painted them separately with very diluted colors. It has to be very diluted to not entirely cover the previous effects. This process can be a little bit scary, as at the first look it seems to cover everything I have already made. But after it dries, it's not but a filter, so don't worry, and any excess can be wiped out with some tissue paper. As it's a thematic base, I wanted to add the rising sun from the imperial flag to the base, so I cut a mask made of paper and applied the first layer of Tamiya Deck 10, very diluted and very unevenly, just to mark the areas and create a hard edge. After that, I add some drops of Tamiya white to the Deck 10 and gave a second layer to highlight some spots and give color variation. When it's ready, I just mask those areas with tape and move to the next step. I forgot to record, but I applied a coat of Tamiya yellow prior to the red because, you know, red has a terrible cover and yellow helps a lot to bring the red up. Okay, time to remove the masks. Yeah. That is what you can expect when remove mask from styrofoam-like surface. It's very difficult as the paint doesn't grip very well, but only one mishap until now and I'm very satisfied. Okay, at least it happened on the white area and was not so tough to repair. Alright, looks good. Let's place the Sonia on it and see how it goes. Well, let's see from another angle. Give it a last try. Yep, not working for my desperation and I just felt like this. So, the contrast of red and white was too strong and took all the attention from the kid. Who wouldn't foresee this, huh? Me, I guess. So, I tried to fix it. I started applying filters of Vallejo Neutral Grey, German Beige and Khaki. It's a pity that I lost some of the previous effect, but this kind of thing happen, right? Even after some filters, the contrast was still very strong, so I decided to apply Deck 10 only over the red sun. Still very diluted to slowly control the effect. Not quite there yet, but it's getting better. I decided to change the Imperial Flag colors to a more concrete-like tone, so I mixed Vallejo German beige and neutral gray and applied over the rising sun. Then I post-shaded the same area with a mix of Vallejo khaki and burnt umber. Now I'm feeling back on the game. I'm glad that I didn't throw the paper mask away. I used it again and reapplied the deck tint very diluted and unevenly. After removing the mask, I felt way much better, and the base is alive again. Now the terrain. I applied a dark brown over every part and every corner to help with shadows and prepare it for the new painting job. I started painting the vegetation with Vallejo dark green, and then with Vallejo olive green, trying to color only the top of grass and the other vegetation. The soil was painted with Vallejo tan earth, avoiding the green areas. Mr. Hobby Sandy Brown was used to highlight the central areas of the soil. Probably, despite the vegetal paper plants, the original colors were already okay. But lately I started to paint everything and I really liked much better the final result. Usually static grass has a light shine that, in my opinion, and depending on the light incidence angle, just doesn't feel realistic. I applied some Woodland Scenics coarse turf clumps in the concrete joints and cracks to simulate growing vegetation. I also painted them later with Vallejo dark green, olive green and khaki, but I didn't record it, so sorry about that. Now the homemade plants. For them I use very diluted Vallejo brown violet, olive green and yellow ochre. I applied these colors mixed with retarder so I can blend the colors directly on the leaves and create better color transitions. And I find the result pretty neat. What would you say, huh? Not bad for a fake vegetation made of paper in just a few minutes. With olive green and yellow ochre, I dry brushed the top of the 6mm grass to give more color variation and also some spots on the 2mm grass. Now a technique that I learned from Uncle Nightshift. It's a very good channel focused on AFV models and dioramas. If you don't know it, go check, I left a link on the description. Anyway, the technique consists of painting individual rocks and coarse grains with different colors. At first look it seems a little bit odd, but when the paint dries it really adds a lot to the piece. Now moving to washes, I like to use oils and make my own mixtures. For this base I mix sepia and just a hint of black. I applied it on the concrete joints and cracks, then cleaned the excess with the brush moisture with thinner, and also did some spackling over the base to recover some of the effects I lost due to my, let's say, concept misjudgment. And also washed the soil to tie everything together. Now something that I'm trying for the first time. I wanted to add some rain puddles, so I first painted the contour with a very diluted Vallejo burnt umber, then gently pressed these areas to create a slight depression, and finally applied some layers of gloss Modge Pod diluted with water. And now the cherry tree. I like to build my own trees from wire, so I cut around 40 centimeters copper wire and twist it to the shape I want. To keep it all together I use black CA glue, which is easy to see, and after dried it still has some flexibility, which allows me to bend the trunk and branches the way I want. A feature that you won't have when using seafoam or other natural materials, for example. After I reached the overall shape I wanted, I just trimmed the excess wire and gave some fine adjustments. Then I leaned back in my chair, take an overall look, one more twist here and there, until I'm satisfied with the result. For the tree texture, I sprinkled wood sawdust over PVA glue, gently pressing it with my fingers. Then I painted black with acrylics to keep all the wood sawdust together. And finally a quick sand with a nail file to smooth the rough surface. For holding the leaves and flowers, I glued polyfiber pieces from Woodland Scenics on the tree branches. At first it seems quite messy, but after a good trimming and some adjustments, it turns into a pretty decent tree, I guess. I painted the whole tree with a mix of Vallejo deck tan, burnt umber and some drops of black. I chose dark colors according to some pictures of cherry trees I found on the internet, but again, I am not a tree expert, let alone saw a live cherry tree, so I really hope it doesn't bother you. After that, a quick dry brush with Vallejo tan earth helps to highlight the bark texture and make it more attractive to the sight. And finally, I applied the same wash I used on the base to darken some lower spots on the trunk and also under the branches. Now the most difficult part for me, I guess. The leaves and the flowers. I do not have pinkish leaves, so I had to make some. I started using baking paper, an eraser and a 0.5mm mechanic pencil to punch some small leaves. However, the process, as you can imagine, is very time consuming and very not satisfying, so before I get any crazy, I tried some alternatives and luckily found a much better solution. I have these herbed orange leaves from Noch that, differently from other colors, is easily bleached. After half an hour the orange color turns into an off-white, which will be much easier to dye. This is a lifesaver compared to the punch method that took me 3 hours to make this little amount. For dyeing the leaves, I use tap water and mixes of Vallejo basic skin tone and scarlet. The process is pretty straightforward, just make some diluted mix and pour the leaves in it. It's interesting here to not put a lot of paint on the mix to avoid the leaves gluing together and you end up with some leaves boulders that we almost need to pass it through a crusher to get them loose again. But jokes aside, the leaves will absorb the paint mix and get dyed very quickly. Then it's just a matter of giving a quick stir to get a more homogeneous color pattern, wait it to dry. Then the leaves get a little clumped but easily separated by rubbing between the fingers. In the end you will have some nice and loose dyed leaves. Applying the leaves on the tree is also straightforward. I sprayed some adhesive over the branches, trying to avoid the trunk, and sprinkled the leaves over it. I repeated the process a few times until I reached the desired effect. Then I cleaned some of the leaves that got sticky on undesired areas and the tree is finished. To place the tree on the base, I just drilled a hole in the location I wanted it to be and glued it in place, making small adjustments on its position. I ended up with a few gaps between the tree roots and the base, which I solved by adding some fine dirt and also clumps of 6mm and 2mm static grass. While these are drying, I sprinkle some fallen leaves over the base and fix them with diluted PVA glue. And finally, I paint the just added vegetation to match the surrounding color palette. And that's it. Here's the final result for this display base. I'm really glad that I changed the colors of the base and still kept the rising sun. The cherry tree is okay, I guess. I'm not totally convinced with the leaves colors, but I showed it to some models friends and they recognize it as a cherry tree even that I said nothing, so I guess it at least resembles one, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. If yes, hit the like button. Next time the video will be in a more usual fashion, starting from a kit and not right through the end of the project. So I hope to see you next time. Cheers!